to Podcast Fandom, the official podcast for ProjectFandom.com. I'm your host, Nina.
I'm Donald.
And I'm John.
And we are back to begin an all-new series. We're going to be covering Paper Girls. It's an Amazon original series based off of a graphic novel series of the same name, written by Brian K. Vaughan. Our art by Cliff Chiang. I said that right. And published. This was Image Comics, if I'm correct, right? I believe it was Image.
Yeah, I believe so.
And we had kind of had a false start with the podcast a few moments ago, and I was saying that I have read the series. I would say most of it. It went on a hiatus, and since it came back, and I believe ended, I've not read those issues. And I don't believe that those final issues, I don't think it was that many. But so I've read most of the series. I know, Donnie, you've not read any of it, right? Nope. And John, I don't know. Have you read any of it?
No. I think I do have the first issue on Comixology. I think I bought it forever ago, but I have not read it.
So,
I just was looking at the Wikipedia to confirm that it was Image Comics.
Okay.
And I see that the colorist was Matt Wilson, who is like the preeminent colorist in comics. So that's cool.
This was just 30 issues. Why did I feel like it was more? But anyway, don't read too much, John.
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just reading the first paragraph.
So, that to say, and this kind of segues into something I wanted to talk about before we start talking about the show proper. I was also reviewing the issues when we were publishing editorials on the site, and that leads to some news. The website, ProjectFandom.com, is currently up and operational. There's still a few things I have to add. By the time you guys hear this, though, I'm sure those things, the main things that I really want to get done before I have you see it, should be taken care of. But I'm sure even then there'll still be some more things. I know there's a couple things I'm thinking of adding. Anyway, it's operational enough to do what it is that I need to and want to do now, which is to be able to more easily, first to make it the podcast, all of them, the free podcasts such as this one and the premium shows, to make them as easily accessible as I can. And to be able to, once again, have a place where most of what we do lives, in a place that's, again, more accessible to people that are outside of Patreon. So, so for now, you go look around. It's very, very simple. There's, every podcast that we put out, whether it's, free or premium, will be up on the site. Obviously, if it's a premium podcast, it will direct you to Patreon, where if you're already a subscriber, you should have no problem accessing it. There will be no more. There will be a player for the for the free shows. There will be a player embedded in the posts, so you'll be able to listen that way, as well as however you were listening before. There was one other thing I wanted to say. There will be no more feedback posts from now on. Feedback for all shows, including this one, should be sent to feedback@projectfandom.com. I will be checking it daily, especially before we record. Just make sure you put in the subject line the show title and episode name or number, so that I'm opening the correct emails, not spoiling myself for something potentially. yeah, so any feedback you have for whatever we're covering at the time. That brings me to probably like my favorite part of the website, because it's going to make my life so much easier. Is the schedule section of the website. And so there you'll find a calendar that when I create it, it's in the month view, which is how I prefer it. I think while you're there, you can kind of toggle to a different view. I don't know why you would want to, but I think you can view by the week if you want to. But anyway, it'll be, and as I plan the calendar, it's, so it'll be updated, live, but it'll have the full month layout. Each show that we're going to be covering, when that show is published, that's the date on the calendar. And that means all free shows, all premium shows, including the time travel tier. And then beneath the calendar, you'll see a list of the shows that we're covering in the month that the calendar lists, shows that are ending that month, and other shows that are in the works that may not yet be on the schedule. So maybe I have it, in this case, set for September, and I just don't have that calendar up. But just to give you an idea of what's coming up, I'll list those shows as well. And then there is a reminder of where you can send in your feedback. So again, it's feedback@projectfandom.com. I'll be checking that daily. Yeah, I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember right now. Maybe I'll remember by the time John is done talking about what he wanted to talk about. That means it's your turn.
Oh yeah, I was like,
Huge.
I was like, wait, what? I was like, did I want to say something? Oh yeah. So yeah, I wanted to mention, just like I mentioned to y'all before the podcast, I was watching this episode and I was like, oh, like this kind of ties into something that I've been reading some books, right? Like I told y'all that I was reading The Interpreter's Daughter, the book by Teresa Lim, and it was about, it was a very good book. I finished that book. It was about a Teresa Lim, who is someone who is from Singapore, and she had immigrated to Great Britain,
Mm-hmm.
I think London.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also about like her family and how her great grandfather or her grandfather had immigrated from China to Singapore,
Mm-hmm.
and like it was just really interesting, like hearing about it was really Chinese history,
Mm-hmm.
Singapore history. It was really an interesting book. And like just hearing, because it was like World War II, right? Like a lot of World War II is kind of limited in our
Mm-hmm.
teachings to, like, especially in America, is like America's involvement, particularly like with Hitler, right? And so like this was very interesting to learn about just the history of like the South Pacific during World War II and the Civil War in China that happened, I believe, the same time that the American Civil War was happening. Anyway, it was an interesting book. And I also, since then, have read Beautiful Country, which is a book that came out last year. And that is also a book about a Chinese immigrant family who immigrated to America.
Well, who's about who wrote it?
What's that?
Who's the author?
That is Chien Julie Wang is the author of that book. Then that was also very illuminating, enlightening, very interesting, about it just kind of like, it's something that I've kind of endeavored, right, to learn more about the Asian experience
Mm-hmm.
and the Asian American experience, and
Mm-hmm.
just that kind of stuff. And I just it was really interesting to learn about the immigrant experience, particularly like in Beautiful Country. it's an experience that where they were not here legally, they did not go through the legal process. And yeah, it was just like how, I don't know, it's just like fucked up, right? That's really the thing that I thought. And the reason I brought it up here, and I thought that it really was interesting, is because in this episode, Erin talks about how her mother doesn't speak good English, right? And so she's kind of, it's something that is a familiar refrain, right? That it feels like children of immigrants often do find themselves in that role where they're learning English at a faster pace, at least, than their parents, and so they kind of become interpreters in that situation. I don't know. It was just, I don't know what I've had anything to really say about this other than they're really good books that kind of go into this, and it's kind of just about like, I don't know. It's just like it's really interesting. Like recently I heard an interview that Stephen Young did with Conan O'Brien, which was really good. It was on Conan O'Brien's podcast, and I think Conan O'Brien and Stephen Young are really good together. Like they actually seem to really enjoy talking to each other. So it was an really enjoyable podcast. And like he talks about this something about when he immigrated from South Korea. He immigrated to Canada, and then his family lived there, I think, for a year before they then immigrated to Michigan, I think.
Right, yeah.
And he talks about how, in that interview, he mentions his experience of how, like, he grew apart from his parents because he was a child, right, like in American culture, and he was, again, learning English and in American schools. And his parents were really like insulated within the Korean community of the city they were living in, and that's just another thing that I feel like you hear a lot about when you listen to like immigrant parents or immigrant families and immigrant children, right? It's just you hear about that same kind of story where it's like the family kind of being pushed apart, and that's something that happens really terribly.
That's basically the whole premise of Uma.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of what?
Uma.
Oh yeah. I haven't. I'm not really familiar with that, but I've heard of that.
The horror
Sandra
movie
Oh.
with Sandra Oh.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that if you look, it's on Netflix, by the way. It's weird to me that if you do a search for it, though, it's UMMA. You do a search for it. It is the first title that pops up. At least we've accessed Netflix through it via the Xbox app. So it's the first image title that pops up. But there's nothing written on it. Like with the other titles, there's image and then it has, the title. It's nothing there. It's just, and it doesn't even look like a cover photo for a movie. It looks like a screenshot of a scene from the movie. And it's the actress who plays Sandro's daughter. And so, like, if you don't know what to look for, if you might have the same experience if you look it up on Netflix, so just FYI.
Right.
But I started it and didn't finish, and I think Donnie didn't finish it.
Right.
But,
I've heard good things about that.
So,
are you saying that you didn't finish it because you weren't enjoying it, or?
Well, no, I started it late in the evening, and I was already getting tired. And I realized, so when I told Donnie this, I was like, I don't think it was the movie. And I think I was just tired, first of all. But also, where I happened to stop, it felt like this is where shit jumps off point. So it didn't really feel fair to judge the movie, because I was like, I think this is where it's supposed to, like, the scary. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as scary, I think, so far as I think the trailer portrayed it to be. But again, I left at a point where I was telling Tanya, I was like, I was very much aware that things might actually start happening, so I didn't feel fair being like, but I just haven't had time to go back to it, so.
Right.
Okay, so it was, hold on, let me make sure I got this right. Beautiful Country, you said, Julie Wong?
Yeah, Chien Julie Wong, yeah. Chien Julie Wong wrote that, and then Teresa Lim wrote The Interpreter's Daughter.
Okay.
And like that's one thing, like you notice, like I mean, it's difficult to talk about like a culture that I'm not a part of, right? Because I don't want to like paint with broad brushes, because obviously no group is a monolith. But like it is something that you notice similar situations, right? Similar patterns. And like one thing that you really notice, at least in reading the books that I've read, like those two that I mentioned, I've also mentioned before, The Impossible City, which is about Hong Kong, and that was by Karen Cheung, and of course, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner.
Right.
And you notice like there's such a strong like emphasis on like filial duties, right? Like the idea of like having like the responsibility to respect your elders and your family,
Right.
and that was something like that's why like I look at, for instance, like in Crying in H Mart, there's one instance where Michelle mentions about that she's in the hospital. And I think it's her aunt is like admonishing her for being in the hospital because it's upsetting her grandmother, and so it's not filial to do this, right? To be in the hospital and upset your grandmother, and like that's it's that kind of like strong like filial responsibility, and that's I hadn't really heard, honestly, like the word filial was not something that I was even familiar with.
Really?
Until yeah, like it was, because like filial is just not a word that I had really heard before, and so like, but it's all over this book.
Right.
And so like, and there's like one thing. I mean, I don't know how much y'all want me to talk, but like, there's one thing.
Well, I do want to get started just a little soon because we will be approaching my bedtime.
Right. Okay, be honest. So I just one more thing. So like in Impossible City, right? Like there's this one moment. I don't remember if I've mentioned this before, but there's this one scene that she describes in her life, Karen Cheung, and it's like she lives in Hong Kong, but like her mother is not in her life because she's moved to Singapore, I think. She's moved away, but I believe it was to Singapore. And so like in her life from a young age, like the women in her life, her mother figures are like her aunt and her grandmother, her paternal aunt and grandmother, and so like they're like like her mother essentially. And at one point she's graduating grade school, and so she's at a graduation ceremony, and her aunt and her grandmother come because her dad has to work, and it's kind of like the situation of her whole life is that her dad has to work. And so at one point one of the other parents asks like, oh, where's your family? I'd like to meet them. And then she's like, oh, my family's not here, they don't come to things like this. And it sounds terrible, right? Like it sounds but like then you learn like the reason that she does that, right? And the reason that she did that is because her grandmother and her aunt did not speak English. And in at least in Karen Cheung's experience, the idea of not speaking English was like lower class, and even to the point where like this school that she's graduating from, like that her dad had to pay a lot of money for her to get into, that like at one point a teacher is like, I forget what her native language was. I don't know if it was Mandarin or Cantonese or Chinese, I don't remember what it was, but at one point the teacher says that language is useless, you need to learn English.
Jesus.
Right? And that's just like, and that that's the kind of thing that you see, like it's a familiar refrain again, throughout these experiences of basically whiteness and
Mm-hmm.
colonialism,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and driving like a wedge into these families in such a way that like it shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't happen. And yeah, I don't know. It's just things like that. It was just, I don't know.
I
Just,
just
and like,
always thought that if we were serious about um, this whole melting pot bullshit, that we would have made it easier for people to stay connected to and have access to parts of their culture,
right,
while making, at no cost to them, while making it um, optional to learn English for free.
right,
I mean, I think, honestly, I think if folks are adopting children from, let's say, Korea, I think that those parents shouldn't have to pay for that child to learn Korean here
hmm
as they're learning English. At school. I just feel like it should be. That's the type of
right,
shit I wouldn't mind my tax dollars paying for.
right.
We have our
And that's
priorities all fucked up. But the reason we don't do those things is, like John said, in the preservation of whiteness. They would not
right,
stand for it. They're so afraid. They would
right.
not
And
stand for it.
that's the thing is like you know, like these, like right now, like Republicans trying so hard to stop schools from teaching
Mm-hmm.
the negative history
Mm-hmm.
of whiteness in
So
America,
I don't want
and
them to feel
how they're
bad.
intertwined, and they don't want the white kids to feel bad. But like that's the thing is like, I think like that conversation, like every conversation, right, is centered on white people,
Yep.
and oh, like even like the positive spin or whatever, like the positive aspect of it is like, oh yeah, we want white kids to learn the history so that they know about it, right? But like it
Mm-hmm.
also, like in reading this, and the experience in reading these books, and in the experience of these kids, and hearing just like the way that schools, and like as you're a child, you you're learning, like as a child, like an Asian immigrant in America, for instance, like the idea that you go to school, and like it's so valuable if you learn the negative aspects of whiteness, so that like you're not just being fed these positive, you know, like lines
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about whiteness in America, and how it's built on racism. And like if you actually hear that, then maybe you wouldn't be so pushed away from your parents and
Mm-hmm.
towards something that isn't real,
Yeah. Yeah.
something that is a facade, like
Yeah.
beautiful country. Like it's Megua is what America was called in China, and that it means beautiful country. And that's the facade that is kind of taken away when they actually, when Chi and Julie Wong's family comes to America, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they find out that
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not beautiful.
I remember the other thing that I wanted to say, um, that because I may not be successful. So because it's super hot here and it's supposed to cool down starting tomorrow, so hopefully we won't have to have the air conditioner running as much, and it won't feel like a death sentence to turn it off just to podcast. I want to try to edit out the noise in the background. I know you guys have been really gracious and saying, "Oh, it's no big deal," but I don't like it. And our friend Sterling mentioned a way to do that, and I tried to the other night, but I was also working on the podcast because that's just how my brain works. I know you'd be like, well, just finish the one thing, but when you got like 5 and 6 things and it feels like they're all got to be done now, you find yourself multitasking. And so I installed the Audacity program that he mentioned, which I've had before, but since getting a new laptop, I didn't have it, so I had to reinstall it. And then I tried doing the thing that they were telling me to do, and it was not working for me. So I'm going to try again, and I'm going to keep trying. So that's what I wanted to say. You may hear or may not. If it's successful, yay! If not, I just know that I tried, okay? And I really wanted to do it for the Westworld podcast. But again, I was sitting here, it had to be after midnight. And I have been working on the site and stuff, and I was trying to get that done so that I could get the podcast up. And I was just like, fuck it, you guys. It was already a bit late, so I just chose to put the podcast out there, and I hated that I had to do that. But, okay. But we're here to talk about, like I said, Paper Girls. I have been waiting for this since, like, forever. Was very happy with what I saw in the trailer, at least the first and only trailer that I watched. Again, once I'm in, then I'm in. I don't continue to watch more trailers, so I really didn't know what to expect, especially having read it. I didn't know, how much they would get into, what you would see. But and I did go back and read the first issue again after watching this, just to kind of see the pacing, and was super surprised by how much went down in this episode. And the first issue, there was there's so many issues covered in this episode, so but it was only a 30-issue series, so this feels like a fun, I would say, 1 to 2 season show, or maybe just a limited series, right? I think this is 8 episodes, so possibly a limited series. I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't
it says...
I've been avoiding stuff. Like, I haven't even read anything, so I don't know what the plan is for it. But
right now it's just. Or do you not want to know? Or
oh yeah, sure.
Well, right now it's just called a series. So, I guess there could be a second season if they want there to be.
I don't think I said the name of the episode, but it's Season 1, Episode 1, Growing Pains. And I want to tell you about the cast really quickly. The main Paper Girls are played by... Tiffany is played by Cameron Jones. Erin is played by Riley Leigh Milek. Mac is played by Sophia. Oops, sorry, I clicked off her name real quick. Sophia Rosinski. And KJ is played by Fina Straza. Additional cast members include Adina Porter, I'm not going to say her character's name right now, Ali Wong as adult Erin, and that's it. That's all I'm going to get into, because I don't want to get into spoilery stuff. Speaking of spoilery stuff, I had watched this episode the other night with Kaylee, and then Donnie watched it when he came home, like in the morning, right?
Yeah, yesterday.
And you started the second episode, and I almost lost my mind. He accidentally started the second episode, and I was like, don't see anything. So now that we're about to talk about the episode, I can ask you, did that spoil you?
No.
Okay.
The first time, because I don't think I ever watched a trailer for this. I didn't know anything about the show.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time when you said, "Oh, we were going to podcast it," and you were telling me and John about the premise of it, but you wouldn't tell us the twist. Right. You would just say something happened. They get together and then something happens. But when before the show dropped, a few weeks, like over the last few weeks, people have been like talking about the. I don't know if people had screeners or what it was, but the whole time travel thing was already, like, that was the headlines in a lot of the things. So I knew immediately it was about, because
I bet you they probably said things like, it's Stranger Things with time travel.
Right. It was just
I bet you those
which is
the types of, like, comparisons they made.
It's just so wild to me that even after it's come out, people are still, like, saying Stranger Things. It's like, get the fuck out more. Because like I
right.
watched this episode and I was like, this has so little in common with Stranger Things.
It is children on bikes. That's
Right.
about it. Children who know how to ride bikes.
It
In
gave me,
the 80s, that's it.
It gave me more Critter vibes than anything.
It's definitely, like, in tone, it's not as dark as Stranger Things was. Yet it's not as light as I misremembered it being. And I say that because when I watched it, I was like, oh wow, like they're cussing, like, and for some reason I guess that was something I just didn't think that they had done. And then I remembered more of the plot, and then I was like, oh yeah, no. What were you expecting? And then I read the first issue again, and I was like, okay. And then there's something that I want to talk about later. We'll talk about the scenes that I think is interesting. So, John, what did you think overall of this first episode?
I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, like, it's so funny, and just to tell you how little that I was aware of what the fuck was going to happen. I was like, they started their paper routes, and I was like, oh, they deliver papers.
You didn't even know why they were paper girls.
Yeah, I was like, what does paper girls mean? What do they even, what's the title referring to? And then I was like, oh, that.
I like how he agreed to podcasts and had no idea, like nothing, like not even premise. That's hilarious.
John's like, is this based off the video game Paperboy? Just changed the thing.
Listen, I did love Paperboy, the video game. I go to the arcade, and I was like, let me play that Paperboy.
You know, there's some incel out there right now who thinks this is an adaptation but woke of that video game.
Well, yeah, some moron.
They changed the sex. That's bullshit.
Anyway, go ahead, John.
Yes, I mean, I really liked it. Like, it like I said, like, I came into it, like, looking for Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, like, just because that's all I had heard.
Mm-hmm.
Even after it came out, and the reactions to it that I've heard was that people still going on about how, it's Stranger Things, and people having to be like, no, this actually came out before Stranger Things, like, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, well, it's probably going to be similar to Stranger Things. And I mean, maybe the additional episodes go closer to Stranger Things, I don't know, but at least this one, I was like, it honestly, I feel, especially when you get to the time travel shit, and it's like, I'm like, oh, like, it's kind of more like Yellow Jackets.
Right.
Like, it's nothing like Yellow Jackets, but like,
it's more like Yellow Jackets, but then it's like Stranger Things.
Right, like, yeah. I just feel like, for me, something is similar, like, more similar when it's similar narratively. Like, and I feel like the time travel aspect is much bigger than kids on bikes in the 80s. You know, like.
And I feel like the God, man, I tell you, COVID messed everything up time wise. I feel like the tone, just in terms of, it feels more like Westworld-y too, in terms of like the sci-fi aspects of it. This is like, you know, like it's, I wouldn't, whereas, you know, with Stranger Things, it's like demonic possession and demons and stuff. So I don't like know like tone. It's like, and like, there's another thing that, oh my God, I hope they get to it this season so I can say it, but because I'm gonna totally make this comparison when it gets there. But anyway, go ahead.
So like it just like narratively and thematically, like there's just nothing, like it doesn't feel like Stranger Things to me, which is, you know, it was unexpected, and so I really liked it, and I felt like, what'd you say her name was? I got it written down here. Sophia Rosinski, who plays Mac. I think she was doing a great job. I really, I think
she's given T2.
I was like, this is fucking John Connor.
It was given John Connor the whole time. Which is so wild, because I don't know that I felt that way in the book. However, like I will say that the casting is just so great in terms of like nailing what they look like and how you would imagine that they would move and speak. The casting is like dead on, but I don't know. I read it so long ago. I don't know my first impression if I got that vibe, but definitely here, John.
Right.
I was waiting for her to hack into an ATM.
That would have been awesome. But yeah, so like I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very interesting, and like the fact that like it's almost entirely the paper route. It's like it's a 40-minute episode, and like pretty much all of it is these kids going out delivering papers, and in like the last 10 minutes, shit goes crazy.
Yeah, I'm still surprised by how much happened in this episode. Okay, right. What about you, Donnie?
Oh, same thing. I mean, it like I said, the when it gets into everything John said is spot on, and then when it gets to the thing at the end and the time travel and the space cops or whatever the fuck they are, but space
cops,
time cops.
Time cops. There you go.
I was like, why are we in space now?
But it
was like, well, that did look like a TARDIS.
and they just reminded me of the movie's Critters, because that was, I don't know if you guys remember
I don't.
The guy, it almost spot on with the outfits and everything. I was like, these are the guys from Critters. But it was similar.
That's great.
Like, why did I convince myself that Cameron, the actress playing Tiffany, was Erica from Stranger Things, to the point where I was watching this and I was like I kept going back and forth. I was like, wow, she really looks like her. But then I was like, but because I had been so in my Stranger Things feelings, and whereas I don't think I was like this in like season 3, but like with this season, I was like watching all of their Stranger Things cast plays with puppies, and I was soaking up all that shit. And I just feel like seeing her outside of the show, she actually looks so much older and more mature than the character of Erica. So I'm watching this and I'm like, no, but like she would have had to have done this at the same time she was doing like season 3 of Stranger Things. She's so young. Like, I just knew it wasn't her. But also, I be high, y'all. So let's just give me a break. Also, it's not racist when I do it.
People like you that are comparing this to Stranger Things.
I know, right? And I hate that, because I hate that was happening. But y'all, to the point where, and Kaylee hasn't seen Stranger Things. Like, I think she's only seen like a few season 1 episodes, maybe just the first one. I don't know. But definitely she hasn't met the character of Erica. So when we're watching this, I was just like, God, is that her? No. And then like a couple of minutes would go by and I'd be like, no, that is her. And I know Kaylee was like, will you shut up? So it just got to the point where I was just like, good for her, she's working. And then I decided to IMDb it, and then I was like, Jesus
You just
Christ.
leaned into it.
Yeah, I just
yeah,
sat
that is her.
I sat in my wrongness and my racism. But again, it's not racist if I do it. Okay? But no, but then so I said that in our Facebook group, and I love that so many other people were like, okay, doesn't she give you vibes of Erica? Let me look up the actress name.
She looks a lot like her.
Like it could be her little sister. They look like they could be family, as we say. I want to look up the actress's name because I don't want to.
It did suck going watching one episode. Each episode's like, or at least this episode was only 30 minutes.
That's a little more than 30 minutes.
35 minutes.
37 and a half or something like that.
So needless to say, I loved it. It lived up to my expectations. I saw that first trailer and it looked good. So I should say my hopes. I had high hopes. And I thought, her name is Priya. Either Priya or Priya Ferguson. She plays Erica Sinclair on Stranger Things. But yeah, so I had high hopes, and they were fulfilled. I feel like it was surprisingly like funny in some spots, and knowing well, okay, let me be clear. I know things, but my brain is a little fuzzy on plot, like why things are happening. So I'm kind of happy about that, and that's another reason I'm kind of like, do I want to go read as we watch, and kind of maybe spoil myself? Maybe I should just remain fuzzy and high for the rest of the season. But yeah, so I think I might just stay that way. Although it is interesting to see differences. One thing I was a little concerned about, and I'm happy that I did go read the first issue again earlier today, was I had a concern with the trailer that I saw. I shared it in the group, and it was the scene where Mac says to KJ, "My father says you people own everything." And I was like, did they make Mac racist? Because I was like, I don't remember that. And I will, and because I wasn't sure from the way they do it in the trailer who she was speaking to, right? Like, I didn't know she was speaking to Aaron, if she was speaking to Tiffany. I completely forgot that KJ's character is Jewish. So I just knew she was saying something out of pocket. What were you saying, John?
I was just gonna say, yeah, that the fact that she's Jewish.
Right. So, I'm like, God, did they, what did they do to the character of Matt? And I will say that watching the episode, what I took from it is that, and this is gonna sound bad, but Mac doesn't seem all that bright sometimes, and it feels like she is repeating the shit she hears at home from her dad. So, like, I don't know if, like, her dad said, those people own everything, and we understand he meant Jewish folks, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But because the family's name is on the bank and the library, if you're a kid, like a 13-year-old girl, and you hear your father say, those people own everything, she may have just thought the Brandmans. So she's like, my father says you people own everything. She doesn't get that he meant Jewish folks, right?
Yeah, like, she thinks literally your family.
Yes, you own the whole thing. And so she doesn't understand the problem with pointing that out. So it just feels like there's that. And then,
which is the kind of shit that you do, like, when you don't have exposure to people unlike yourself.
And so again, I was like, okay, I don't remember. So one, I want to say that I feel like it's several times where her most ignorant things are things she's repeating, and it's all my dad says, right? So I think, obviously that's purposeful. And the other thing I want to say is, I should not have been surprised, because I don't know how familiar you guys listening are with the Comixology app, but like it opened the issue up to whatever page, like I just happened to be on, right? For whatever reason, the last time I closed the issue, and it is a, what do you call the is a splash page where it just takes up, the artwork takes up the whole page,
right?
Mm-hmm. One panel, right? The whole page. And so it's her on a bike in the middle with a cigarette hanging from her lip, and Tiffany and KJ are behind her. And it might be like the opening page, I'm not sure, but she's like, nice costume, and then she says the F word, which is a homophobic slur. And I completely forgotten that. Like, so to go back to read the issue for the first time in years, and then to have it, and with this in mind, to check the tone of it all, to see how they're doing, and to have that be the first page, I was like, oh, well, they toned it down. Now, I don't want to spoil too much, but I will say, please don't. And here's the thing, I didn't like seeing it, and I would, my thoughts on artists using that word in their work has changed over the years, because I absolutely used to be one of those, no, if it's in fiction and it's the character, that's who they is and all that, and then I came to my fucking senses. me personally, I feel like I came to my senses. So do not get me wrong. Trigger warning if you feel like that's not something you want to see. So you know, whether you feel like I'm not going to support it at all, or I'm just going to skip that page, know that it's in there. And again, for those who are going to read, not to be too spoilery, but no, it is addressed. It is not like, and I feel like, to that, I would just say, I feel like you see hints of it in this episode, which I really like. So I don't think they're going to have Mac go that hard, right? But I do feel like we'll probably see more of her repeating things that she hears from her dad, and I will say that I feel like it will be addressed. So, to that. So let's talk about the details, shall we? Y'all ready?
Yeah.
So just remember, again, but really quickly before we get started, if you want to leave feedback for this show or any show that we're going to be covering, send that to feedback@projectfandom.com, and I will read it on the air. Again, make sure you put the name of the show plus the title, episode, and/or number in the subject line, okay? And also you can go to projectfandom.com and check the schedule, and it should be projectfandom.com/schedule, by the way. And toggle the calendar if it doesn't load. I think by the time you hear this will be in August, so it should automatically pop up. But you'll be able to see which shows we're covering this month and when they will be published. Okay, so Donnie started the second episode, which pretty much begins with Ali Wong's adult Aaron character freaking the fuck out. So I was like, stop watching! Where's the remote? If everything is like slow motion. And he says that he wasn't spoiled. But the way the series opens with her hearing somebody entering into her house, that character, played by Ali Wong. And then it cuts to the girls waking up, particularly this Aaron. Did you not see that coming at all? When it gets to the point at the end, at the house.
Oh, I did.
Looping back to the beginning. Did you?
I mean, I got it because I told you I knew it was about time travel. So I got...
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that I knew. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I knew time travel was coming. I just didn't know. It's a weird take on time travel because you don't see it.
Right,
and the older
yeah.
version doesn't remember the younger version visiting them.
Right.
Yeah, that was the cool part. Was that she didn't know shit. That was the because you're intimating, Donnie. Like that's a unique. That's a unique situation. Mm-hmm. I will say as someone like I didn't realize that time travel was going to be here.
That's right. You didn't know anything about it.
I did also see it coming though.
Right.
Because you have the scene with Ali Wong, and she like wakes up or whatever, and then you have the chyron on the bottom of the screen that says the
Change
date.
the year, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like,
okay,
it must be a past or something like it. That so my assumption was that Ali Wong was at some point not in 1988. That was my assumption.
Okay. That I think is different though than thinking time travel. That's what I meant. Like,
right, yeah,
it plays like that's just a flashback. Like,
right.
When somebody is breaking into her house, you're thinking it's probably your time, like present day or whatever. But when the chyron changes and tells you 1988, you're thinking, oh, flashback. And then you see the little girl, you think, oh, that's her younger self. But you're not thinking that she's going to meet her younger self by the end of the episode.
Right.
Or her older self.
Right.
So, there was one other thing I wanted to say. I'm going to say it now because it actually happens at the end, but I have it at the start of my notes. And I just do not want to forget to come back to it. At the end of the episode, there was a tribute to Yang Liu. And I looked her up. Did you guys see that? Did you notice
Yeah, I
that?
saw it.
I didn't see it.
Okay. And I feel like it wasn't a photograph, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was like a painting of like a portrait of her face. And so I looked her up, and I only read one thing, and I felt like I don't need to like look at anything else. It was such a beautiful tribute to her. I think it might have been, if I'm remembering correctly, like her alma mater at her school. And I tweeted it, and I will include it in the show notes for this podcast. And again, remember, all this stuff will be up at the website now. But it was, about her life. And so it talked about, she passed away in a car accident in November of last year, in 2021. She went jogging and was hit by a car. This was talking about like the brunch that she had. Like it begins talking about the brunch that she had with a friend prior to that, and him then speaking at her like memorial, her celebration of life ceremony, wearing what he said he would have worn when for their next brunch that they never got to have, that they had promised the last time they spoke. So I'm just reading about her life, and it was just such an interesting way it was told, and each section about her was framed around things that she loved, like about her work and her love of travel and food and how she met her husband and stuff. And so it's just really, really interesting. And so as I'm reading about like what she went to school for, and she has like all these business degrees, and she graduated, and she went, after college, she went to work for Morgan Stanley in Hong Kong, and then she came back to study at the Wharton School of Business, so she lived in Philadelphia. And I'm like, how is she related to this show? And as like the most interesting people are, she had this like amazing, interesting life where she just like pivoted into a different career that she had a passion for, which is working in media. And so she eventually went to work for, I think, first Disney and then Amazon Studios in content strategy. So I'm assuming this is one of the shows that was under her
umbrella.
That she was, on a project for, if not leading, working on. So, so it's just really interesting. I don't know if like, John said you hadn't seen it, Donnie had, so I don't know if you guys saw it or missed it, or if you had time to look it up, but that's where she was, and I thought she had a really, really interesting, lovely life, and by all accounts seemed like a really nice person. So, okay. So Donnie and I watched this this morning, and what did you say about this? Like, the beginning is the girls preparing for...
It's the fucking hardest job. I did this... This was my first job I ever did. I had one of those exact bags. Everything was spot on as how this process is. It's fucking child labor.
It's
I was doing
terrible.
I was doing this shit at Jack's age. Was how old I was when I was doing this. And I was doing it by myself. I had to get up at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to go do it. The worst part of it was when you'd have to get the money from the people. So you'd have to go door to door and beg these people to pay their fucking bill. And there would be people that wouldn't.
This country is so terrible.
Trash.
I never even, it's not something I even really thought about.
And like when they talk about they're telling their stories about going for collection. Oh yeah, I went to collect money for this guy.
Yeah, the guy was
naked
and all. Yeah.
So that's the shit. Like, you're 12, 13 years old. There was a time that's all the paper was were 12, 13 years old.
When
How does it happen now? I wonder.
Everybody gets their fucking... Well,
I think it's
who gets
a truck,
their newspaper?
right?
Who gets it?
I think
I'm surprised if anybody still gets a newspaper.
Well, I think for the people who do, I think it's like a truck, right? Like a service?
Probably. But everything's so... It's on the internet now. Us kids back in the day were the internet.
It doesn't... They don't drop it at the truck, the printing, the papers themselves. They don't... Well, I'm assuming like the labels is like that's the postage. So do they print that stuff? Is it? I don't remember. It's not the mailman, right?
No, it's a newspaper company that did it.
So it has to be their own, their delivery, their trucks.
That's a dying industry, so I don't even know if they home deliver anymore.
Who the fuck is still getting the newspaper?
Exactly.
I'm sure some people
Old
are.
people.
I mean, old
Like,
people.
I'll say it.
Yeah, old people.
But we didn't have 24-hour news stations and stuff like
Right.
that back in the day.
God,
So
I
if you
still
needed
love
your
getting
news, like that was the
newspaper.
only way to get your news, or you had to wait for the 12 o'clock news or the 8 o'clock news, whatever the fuck it was. But there was no other way to get the news right away.
So yeah, Donnie had lots to say about this shitty ass job that is absolutely terrible and dangerous, and I cannot believe.
Oh, I just
Like, this
remember
was so
rolling that
normal.
shit up.
And then because men note how Mac is like, well, now the girls are doing it, the job pays half of what it used to.
Right.
And I was like, of course, because men ain't shit.
Yeah, we wouldn't have boys do this for this little pay. Come on.
And meanwhile, they're out there working, and all the boys they encountered were out there being fucking delinquents.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, this looked miserable. And I mean, I did not do this. This is not a job I had as a child. But I did start working at 13 as well, and maybe 14. But I remember you saying, this is my first job, which, I don't know, we've been together so long, it's like, I find it hard to believe that I didn't know that. It's probably more likely that I knew it and forgot, because we've been together for 50 goddamn years. But what surprised me not surprised me, but when you said it was my first job and I've been working ever since.
Yep.
And I don't remember how old I was, but I remember being a kid and wanting to work, or being like upset about not having my own money to do something that either my
Right.
parents couldn't do for me or wouldn't do for me, right?
Fucking capitalism.
Right, and so I was just like, I want a job because I want to work. And I remember my Uncle Tony saying, don't be in such a rush to work, because once you start, you can never stop. You just,
Right.
you don't stop. And that stuck with me, because it's like, yeah, once you get to that, because even if it's like, you know, and again, I don't know what the parents are thinking or wanting out of this. I'm sure a lot of this is framed as responsibility and all of that stuff. But like, ask yourself, why does a 13-year-old have to get used to the feeling of waking up at 4 fucking a.m.? For what like, why is that a hustle they need to get accustomed to at that age? In the future, if they're out there, you know what, there's some sort of NASA scientist, chemist, and I don't fucking know, and they got to get up at 4 a.m., that's a choice that they've made, okay. But why are we conditioning children that this is just, that's at 13, that sometimes...
And it was always, I mean, if you look at old movies like the early 1900s, and you always see the little boy in the street, paper, free paper.
Right,
like,
right.
It was always, paperboard was just a thing that was just created back in fucking
At
early
fuck
media.
you o'clock,
Like,
as Max said.
and it's because they pay nothing, and you don't, it's illegal. Like, you can't federally tax them and stuff like that, so it's all under the table.
But so I wanted to finish this because I didn't want to forget.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to say was, so I'm not trying to like judge the parents too harshly, because again, I feel like this is conditioned and just like passed down. For me, I don't know about you, Donnie, but for me, again, I remember my uncle giving me that advice, and just being fucking true. But for me, in New York, there was a summer work program, and my friend who runs the Free Black Women's Library in New York, the original, the founding one, Ola, she signed up to have a team work for her this summer and got one. And I remember my first job was through that program, and my mother, her job was at Downstate Medical Center in the office of the dorms for the medical students. And she'd been working there for years, and she did that. She went and applied to have that place be a place that would accept a teenager to work in the summer youth program. And did that so that then her boss could specifically go and request me. And so every day during the summer, I went to work with my mom and clocked in. And I'm talking clocked in, y'all. Like, literally punched a clock with the little car, you know, the thunk-thunk sound, that whole deal. I am old, y'all. I was doing that like 13 years old. So that was like my first job. But again, the reason you don't stop is, if you think about it, is you get conditioned to the hustle and the money. So whatever you use it for. So even if your parents, if you think about it, even if your parents are looking at it as, well, it's not like I'm making them work to pay the bills, to contribute. They're saving for college. That is still a burden that we are putting on children, because college should be fucking free. But that's another thing. So, you know, like, you don't stop, because either you have to continue because your parents have now told you this is how you get, you know, this education that we're telling you is required and necessary for your future, right? Or you're doing it because you have to contribute to the household, right? So you can't stop, you know, because everybody needs to eat. Or you yourself then become conditioned to, you know, maybe you're doing it and now you're not saving for anything. Your parents are making you pay bills, but it's your money, and money is nice to have.
You buy shit.
Right, you can now buy the things that you want. You see, so I mean, it's like you're fucked either way. I don't know any teenager who starts who then says, you know what, that was cool, but I'm gonna stop for like the next 10 years, and then I'll get serious about this thing called life. You know, maybe, but I mean, it's like there's, and then it's. So dangerous.
I did that, but not intentionally. Because I worked when I was like 14 or 15 at McDonald's, which I don't think was legal, but I did it.
And that's the job you walked out of, right?
Yeah, but I worked for like 2 days on 4th of July weekend, like 18 hours, I want to say. And then I was fine to continue working, but I asked them, because I needed someone to give me a ride because I couldn't bring myself.
Oh, that's right. And they said,
And so, yeah, like when they hired me, they were like, yeah, we'll put you with your cousin, because I was applying with my cousin.
Right.
And when that was a Friday and a Saturday, and when the schedule came out on Sunday for the next week, we weren't together. And I was like, well, I guess I ain't coming.
Have you ever walked out of a job, Donnie?
No.
I have. It is so liberating. I've walked out of a waitressing job in New York City, like literally put shit down on the counter and was like, I'm going on my break, and grabbed my purse and never came back. Ever, ever, ever. And then I left a job working in a hotel, in the back office of a hotel, in reservations, and typed up my resignation letter at work. Printed it out, held on to that bitch for the day. 5 o'clock came, left that shit on my chair. Had make sure all my, belongings, personal stuff was in my purse when I left. Never came back. Mail me my check, please.
That's the stuff that like my mom tells me that she did, like in the 70s and shit. Like the 70s, the 80s and shit.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I did that. And then I went down the street and got another job. And I was like, well, that ain't how it works anymore. Like, you can't do that anymore. They've got you by the balls.
It's like waiting for a bus. Like another one just comes along.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I told y'all, when I this was probably over 10 years ago. It was like 15 years ago. I was applying for a job at Dollar General.
Jesus.
Y'all remember Dollar General?
Yes.
And I was applying just for a job. I had to do like 4 fucking interviews with that manager.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense
There's
at all.
There's nothing going on at Dollar General that requires all of that.
Right. And this was a situation where I was applying to be like a stalker, because I like with the anxiety that I had, I was not doing it at a cash register. But like, so I was like, give me that job. And then he was like, yeah, that'll be the job you have. And then he had me on the cash register the first day, and I was like, I can't do this. And so I only had that job for one day. And I remember I came and I told him, and he was like, God, like I spent so much time on you. And I was like, I didn't ask you to do that. You're the one who gave me 4 interviews for this stupid fucking job.
He was trying to groom you to take his place.
It's so weird. Anyway, like just really quickly, like y'all talking about that reminded me, in Beautiful Country, Chian's parents in China were professors.
Oh yeah,
Right,
I remember you told us that.
Like they were,
yeah,
they were professors, and then they came here, and like I forget what her dad did, but her mom like got a job like at a sweatshop, and she went with her mom at like 7 years old, and so like they both worked in the sweatshop for like pennies on the like the item.
People come here sold a lie.
Yes. Yeah, American dream my ass.
Oh my God! And I swear to God, I want nothing but the worst for Ted Cruz. Absolutely, like I don't give a fuck what it is. You're thinking it, yes, that's what I mean. Yes, whatever you're thinking, absolutely. If it's the worst, if it's nothing good, I want that for him. And every time I read a headline about another shooting or cops abusing their power and shooting someone, innocent people, I'm like, I think of him getting in that British journalist face and like practically hissing, America is the safest country in the world and millions of people come here to what, motherfucker? So
to be
terrible.
exploited.
To be exploited. Some motherfuckers like you can retain seats of power and abuse that power. I hate him. I hope nothing good happens to him ever in his life.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
Him, and there's a whole list.
Oh, there's a whole list, but I think of him particularly lately.
Right.
Okay, so the beginning, again, it's a pretty tough gig. You know, we got these 13-year-old girls getting up early in the morning, prepping for this route, and not only do they have to go and do it, but they're prepping their papers. Like, I forgot that part. Yeah, you get the bundle of papers, you gotta come inside and roll them up.
Donnie was having like flashbacks.
Yes.
I completely forgot about the details and stuff. That bag and everything. I was like, I completely forgot all.
And then you get on your bike.
Yep.
So, Erin is being harassed by a neighbor. Excuse me, not a neighbor. Someone on one of the houses that she thinks she's on her route, but she's actually on the wrong street, and she realizes too late that she's given this household a paper that shouldn't have it. She's trying to take it back, and this white man is just acting like a white man.
You're taking my paper?
He's like, you, and then he says this horrible word about Japanese people, and then she's like, I'm Chinese, and like, I love and I hate that it's also like a black child who has to be the one to be like, this is how you have to deal with this. Do you know what I mean? Like, where she's like, she's still thinking reason and conversation is gonna work. I'm Chinese. Yeah. He doesn't care. This is not your paper. Like, I need to take, like, you know. And here she's like, my colleague, you know, this girl who's been here her entire life, black, has probably heard so many stories. See, nobody's talking to Erin's mom yet, right? She's getting it though, apparently, right? She's like, the neighbors don't like us.
Yeah, they have to give out full-size candy bars at Halloween.
So she's getting it, right? But she's not yet, you know, been told, no, sis, don't even. These yahoos will fucking shoot you. Here, just let him take the fucking
and get away with it.
And get away with it. Let's just go.
And then this asshole, like, after Tiffany, right? That's her name. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because like I wanted to call her Tanya.
And then here comes Mac. Tanya, hey.
Because I was like, in my mind, I was like, what's her name, Tanya? But no, it's Tiffany. When after she, saves Aaron, and the guy's like, now both of you get out of here, or whatever. And it was like, yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's absolutely a piece of shit. Mac arrives and tells them that KJ is another paper girl is in trouble, and they rush off to save her. Like when they walked up in that tunnel, I was like, why are we doing this? Like nothing good happens in tunnels. Like what is like y'all are some badasses because this is scary.
Yeah, but then Mac pulls out the what I didn't realize what it was when she pulled it out. I was like, well, she's ready.
Yes.
Like whatever she's
ready.
gonna do, she's ready.
And I've never heard of like Hell Day. Like this was new to me. That and like I don't know if this.
I don't know. Is this supposed to be like a thing?
Well, like when I grew up, it was always the night before Halloween was Devil's Night.
Ah.
And so that was the thing. Like October 30th at night was Devil's Night.
Okay.
But
so this is the morning of November 1st.
Right. This is the morning the after midnight of Halloween.
Right.
Turning into.
It kind of makes sense that this would also be a thing.
Right.
It's like the morning after doing God knows what type of stuff. Oh my God, do you hear Nico?
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear him, John?
Yeah, every so often.
Oh, my poor baby. So this is where it's kind of like the get to know you, where they introduce themselves and they learn that Aaron is new. We learn that Mac is a bit of a legend. She is the first paper boy to not be a boy. We learned that KJ's family has money and influence, or at least her grandfather did, right? And Tiff has saved up all her Christmas tips for 2 really nice walkie-talkies.
$49.99.
That does not include tax and batteries. Thank you very much. And a lot of this is like word for word from the comic book, with her talking about these walkie-talkies and stuff. A lot of the assault and the harassment that they face is it's done a bit differently. I kind of like it this way better, but a lot of this dialogue and stuff is like word for word.
Right. And I like the efficiency of character development here, where like you immediately meet them and like she gives Aaron one of these walkie-talkies that she saved all her money to buy.
Yeah.
And like it really establishes that they're strangers, like they can be strangers that they just met, and just because they have the same job, like they view each other as like colleagues, as she says. Like people like it's I will give you my expensive walkie-talkie that I just met you. Because we're both in this together.
They decide that they're going to team up to finish their routes again, because it is Hell Day. They are, the older boys are out there causing trouble. We see them egging the truck that dropped off the papers. And that's what I think is happening now, Donnie. That's what I mean. I think they're newspaper trucks. Like, it's just those guys. They get out of the truck now and are, I think, delivering to houses. I think. But anyway.
It's an actual job.
It's an actual job now.
But it's a part-time job because you don't get benefits.
Right. I want to say this scene when they decide that they're going to team up and they take off on their bikes. Like, the music, I remember watching it with Kaylee and I was like, about to start singing, because I was like, this sounds like If I Could Turn Back Time. And I was like, oh, it's not. Then I just like fell into the scene. Watched it again with Donnie and I was like, doesn't it sound like If I Can Turn Back Time? And he's like, yeah. And then I kind of get back in the scene, but because I've seen this already, I get out of the scene again. I'm like, it is. It's just instrumental. Listen, I love shit set in the 80s. I didn't mention this at the start of the podcast, but kind of like obligatory at this point. You guys know it's like my favorite decade. I'm old. I have favorite decades.
I didn't know any of these fucking songs. So.
You didn't, and I feel bad for you. I hate that for you. It's like the Bangles at the end. Oh my God, Hazy Shade of Winter. The fuck? How the fuck do you? That's Anyway, the music was so good in this. Huh?
I said I know one Bangles song.
The walk like an Egyptian. That's the whitest thing you've ever said. Okay, whatever. So,
they only have one song, right?
Right.
yeah, right. Oh my
Wonders.
God, what is wrong with you?
Whiteness.
Oh God. So they, they're gonna team up, and there's really cute conversation about what their last Halloween costume was, and Erin was lying out her ass because I feel like she dressed up like last night. Like I feel like.
It was so. I mean, it was so relatable, and also like, you know, like uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
As you could tell, like she really likes. She still likes it, but she was like, I gotta say that I'm too old for this.
Yeah. She's like, and then I was like, you know what? This isn't me. I'm too old for this. So I was like, aw, sis.
That's one of those things where like, I don't know, like you're forced to grow up faster.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So Erin is snatched here off her bike before they can separate, and this is different. I knew that this had happened, but I didn't realize that it was different until I read today. This happens to Tiffany, and it's a bit differently. Also, I don't know, having read it, like knowing what to look out for, did you guys notice, I thought, knowing what was coming, they did a good job with this. Did you notice that it was like two sets of guys out there? That there was like the teenagers that you really didn't have to worry about? But but I mean like, even before he snatched her off the bike, did you notice those two guys in the background?
No, I didn't notice two new guys until the house.
Oh, yeah. Like, there's a shot of them, like, running. And I believe this is, like, if I'm remembering correctly, even from earlier today, there's, like, a shot of them, like, the girls on the bike just talking. And then, like, in the background, you see, like, these two guys, like, in black. Like, you know, what they're wearing here. And, like, there's, like, weirdness above their head. So they're not like, the characters aren't English letters or something. So, but here, they just have it where they kind of, like, run by, and it's kind of like blink if you miss it. Did you see it, John?
No, I didn't realize until Erin got grabbed, and I was like, who the fuck is this?
Right.
Because I knew it wasn't the other guy.
Yeah.
So I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
And it, like, scared me, again, because, like I said, it doesn't quite happen this way. Oh, my God, if you've ever, and I don't know, this may be, I think we talked about this before, this may be like a city kid thing, but like skinning your knee on concrete, I have delivered 2 babies. I would rather do that again right now than skin my knee on concrete right now. Like, I would rather have that pain than skin my knee. That is a burning, searing.
Yeah.
It is like, and I don't even know if it hurts so much as it's like.
Oh, it hurts because remember I just did
constantly
it a year ago.
uncomfortable. So it's just. What you say, Donnie?
I say it hurts because remember I did it just a year ago.
Oh yeah, that's right. To save my dog. You knew what was up. But when it happens to her, she's like, "Get off me!" And then the others arrive. Like there's like it's not even like a close up or anything, and it's nighttime, or I mean it's early morning. The sun's not up, so it's dark. But I just feel like you could just see because it's like a special kind of like bright fleshy red that your knee gives off when that skin comes off.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I don't think that I ever. I mean, because I don't think I ever skipped my knee like on concrete, because like I don't know, I never had sidewalks. But like I did skin like my legs and stuff on asphalt, like riding my bike in the street.
Ugh.
And that's some shit like you'll get
that's
that
bad
like
too.
get it like embedded like a
The
rock
black-
Yes,
embedded
the
in
black
your
little,
knuckles.
yes. Oh, goodness. So yeah, they make off with one of the other walkie-talkie that Tiffany had given Erin. So they're like, we're gonna now here I think in the comic it's like they could like see like where the guys, or no, they figure it out. But I feel like here, or was it the opposite? But either way, they realize that they're in these unfinished houses. In the comic book, Erin says something interesting. She's like, me and my sister, I think her name is Missy, she's like, we sneak in here sometimes, and you can always see like beer bottles and stuff, people partying in here. And I'm like, what? You're doing what now? But then again, it's like you get up at 4 a.m. to go to work. You grown. Like, I mean. But when they're like gonna go in there, I like that Aaron is like, I'm so sick of people fucking with me today.
Yeah.
We're gonna go get this walk because they think it's the kids. They think it's just those older boys from school.
Yeah, they were like very convinced that it was these guys who apparently would have had to be very fast.
Wally Becker. Yeah.
They would have had to run after them and like, you know, take shortcuts to get there in time to grab her off of her bike.
She's like, are we really gonna fight these guys? She's like, we're gonna murder them. And me and Kaylee laughed out loud because Aaron was like, bet, say less, okay?
She said they were all going to murder them if the walkie-talkie was broken.
Huh?
She said if the walkie-talkie was broken, she was going to murder them.
Oh, okay. So the sky... Oh, so they go inside and it smells really bad, right? And they don't see anything in here, right?
No, it's not until they go to the basement.
Right, because the sky starts to change outside.
Yes.
Yeah, they only realize things are weird when they see the guy's face.
That's right. They do encounter him. That's right. And they realize it's not him. It's not Wally Becker. And then
and these guys are talking in a foreign language.
Right.
Yeah, and like they after they run off, and the kids are like, "Did you see that guy's face?" And I was like, I didn't see that. What was wrong with his face? Like, to me, it looked like just a regular face, but I didn't. Was there something strange about their faces?
I don't know, like, I guess, how noticeable it is. Obviously, it's not very, I mean, if you missed it, but it's more noticeable, obviously, I think, in the comic book. It looks like they have, like, actually, let me stop now that I think about it. It's like, in the comic book, I feel like one eye is like higher than the other, and like his skin is like saggy, and it has like marks on it and stuff. Like there's disfigurement on his face. I think both of them are. And again, they're speaking in this weird language that just sounds, unpleasant. And it's communicated in writing as like these, just symbols that don't resemble anything we communicate with. So,
got it. I just whenever like you see that guy's face, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this
yeah.
face?
So here it feels like, honestly, if I remember correctly, I don't know, Don. It just feels like it looks like maybe they're burned. So it's not super noticeable.
I couldn't tell anything.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. And then obviously you see they have to press these things on their throats to translate.
Which is like
what they're saying.
Yeah, you've seen this done in movies.
Yeah.
Like a voice translator.
What's interesting though is like their lips should be moving differently than the English coming out of it, right?
Yes.
Or unless this is supposed to be a thing that kind of reads their thoughts and automatically translates, like,
to English.
Has their mouth. Do you get what I mean?
Right. I would have expected their mouth to not move at all.
Wait, why? But they have to say. I thought it was translating, so they're saying
talking in that foreign language. And it was
like
translating.
Similar to like when
you thought it
someone
was
has
reading
like
his mind.
Like when someone has like a voice box, like they have throat cancer or something, and they have like that, and their mouth doesn't move, like they just speak through their throat.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking like, for some reason, I was thinking that was done, like with a thing in their mouth. Like, no. Why was I thinking like, isn't that like? No, I think that there is something that they can control with their breath. No?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, all I know is the vibrating thing that people put on like their throat.
Okay.
To like speak when they can't speak through their mouth.
Hawkins had that, right?
Stephen Hawking.
Hawkins. Okay.
Not quite. No.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so they go outside, and this was absolutely terrifying. There's a bit difference. I mean, obviously they made. Well, I can't say that they can't do, because with CGI they can do anything nowadays. But in the comic book, the sky looked like there were like new constellations. It was terrifying. There were like new constellations and like things, like different star patterns, and well, that's constellations. I don't want to say like, maybe I should just bring it up. Like you can see like another planet, but it just looked different. This just looked like a really freaky storm, or like I would think that it was like some sort of chemical attack that would change the sky. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Donnie?
I said it was just purple clouds. So to me, it just something's going on, but you can't.
I mean, it serves the purpose of, I think what happens after that is a lot of the stuff that happens after that is it has this cool kind of pink haze over it in the comic book. So I like that they achieve that. Like you see it in the car after Aaron gets shot. It just looks so pretty. So I mean, it both are pretty, but I feel like when the way it's drawn in the comic book, it was way more terrifying again, because it kind of like the whole world moved, right? Whereas then after this happens, they're like, hey, did you see any people? And there's no car. Right. So then you get the impression that the people left or something. Right. You know what I mean? But
because they go to her house, and
right.
her dad and brother aren't home.
Right. So, but like in the comic book, because of the stuff in the sky, it's even more confusing. I should say, because
what was that?
The people leave, and then the planet move, and then what's happening?
This is like,
here. It just looked like a freaky storm.
And this is the Stranger Things feel for me. This storm. Look to it. Reminds you of kind of the Upside Down and stuff like that.
Yeah, like what was that movie in the 80s where like people disappeared? It's like a cult movie, like a cult
Body
popular
Snatchers?
movie. No, not Body Snatchers. It was like people disappeared and then like their clothes were like left on the ground. It was a movie like when we were doing movie nights like years ago. We watched it. God, I'll figure it out. But it was like from like the early 80s or something. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, I was thinking of that. Like, no, not like, but this was very similar to Langoliers' feeling, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, like the end of Langoliers when they're at the airport and there's nobody fucking around.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was that kind of an eerie feeling.
Yeah.
And I would expect like what you're describing, Nina. Like, I'm glad they didn't show that here. Like, I feel like what they did here really worked. I thought really well, just to make it feel uneasy. Like not to be like so crazy and like that sounds like you said, like seeing that in the comic was probably like seemed very like fucked up, right? I feel like that I would expect us to probably see that at some point in the future on the show. Something where like they see a sky like that, like where they're just being introduced to it here. I think especially like not just the characters being introduced to it, but us as viewers being introduced to it. I think it makes a lot of sense for it to be more subtle.
When they go to Mac's house, this is so funny. Did you know Erin was taking off her shoes?
Yeah.
And Mac was like, "What are you doing?" She was like, "Nothing."
No, nothing. This is my culture. Nothing.
Poor baby.
She's like, "I want to take your shoes off here."
Just like, right? KJ was like, "You don't want to be walking around barefoot here." They talk about the fact that people seem to be missing. They wonder if it could be aliens or the Russians. Erin wants to leave because her mother...
we were so scared of the Russians in the 80s and stuff.
Right. Erin wants to leave, and they don't want to let her. They say, it's not safe. So they decide to sit and chat for a bit, right?
And this is where, like, Erin's like, people need me, and then she has to explain what she means.
Yeah.
Because that sounded really shitty.
Yeah. So they bond a little bit. They talk about their jobs. They eat some of the candy bars that Erin has. And then when she tries to, they hear like this noise outside. And when Matt grabs a gun, her and KJ kind of struggle over it. It goes off and Erin is shot. So, like, none of this happens in the first issue. Like, they've covered quite a few issues so far in this episode.
When she got shot, I was like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, because, I mean, it was kind of expected when the gun came out.
Yeah.
But then, like, I was like, well, they're not going to shoot anyone.
Mm.
Like, why would they do that in the first episode? I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting, like, she would be healed by the end of the episode, you know, but...
Yeah.
So it was very unexpected.
So Tiff is trying to drive them to the hospital. Erin ends up passing out and has a weird kind of dream vision about Ronald Reagan, who was also shot. So I feel like, I don't think I had said this part, but the very first time I read this, I remember not picking, because they didn't do like they did here where they're like what year it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're just in it. And I don't think I like, and now going back and reading it, and this is probably, reading it earlier today is probably, I would say, my fourth, maybe fifth time reading this, because reviewing it, I'm sure I read the issue at least twice or three times. So anyway, I did not pick up that this was the 80s. Because, like, I remember there, like, in here, she rips off the calendar page when the show starts, and then that's when they show you the date. In the comic book, it's the same thing. It's like that little Dilbert, calendar, like one cartoon a day type thing. But I feel like, I was like, was it not as prominent, like what the date was? And then, like, I don't even think I picked up on her, like, the fact that she's getting ready for this job. Because I don't think that the comic book shows you the other girls getting ready like the show does. I think it's just Erin in the comic book, I believe. Anyway, she's, like, when she's on her bike, there's a campaign, a lawn sign.
For
Bush.
Bush. Yeah.
But even then, I was thinking this Bush, the close W. So I was not getting that it was the 80s. And then even when she has this thing in the vision about, and I should say that the show starts, the comic book starts with her having a dream. That's it. And in her dream, she's dreaming about Krista McAuliffe, the teacher, who went up in was it the Challenger, and it exploded. She's going to be the first woman in space. So I thought that was interesting because that was, again, this shit is my childhood now. I remember when that happened, and it makes sense to me that, a young girl would have dreams like this. Like these traumatic things that have happened in her childhood, like in her lifetime so far. This and then the president being shot. But yeah, so it's, I don't want to be spoilery. So yeah, I didn't get that the time thing, you guys, until the end of the first issue. And it's not the end of this episode. Like, in the comic book, like, this hasn't happened yet. Like, so
really?
Again, the show has flown through so many issues. But the reveal at the end of the first comic book is such that if you were not picking up on the clues beforehand, like I hadn't, it's like, oh, okay. This is not the time I think it is.
Is this now?
And I guess, it's not spoiled. I'll just say they don't recognize something that in today's world, like, it's as simple as, like, McDonald's. Like, let's say before McDonald's, like, showing somebody the golden arches in, like, the 1800s, right? They're like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what this is, It would be like that.
I don't know, but it looks delicious.
Right, exactly. So those weird guys are having, like, a shootout with some people in white in the street, and this interrupts them going to the hospital. And then this was a little frustrating. I forgot to say this earlier. This was the other thing that's a bit frustrating. Well, it wasn't, because it's not their fault. It's my fault for assuming. I thought the show was starting where this episode ended. Like, I thought... No, that's not true. I thought they were starting with the future.
But they kind of did.
They kind of did, but I thought they were going to spend a lot of time there and kind of maybe do it a bit differently. And then I got annoyed because, again, when you're reading this, even in the first issue, she hasn't met her older self yet.
Gotcha.
So you don't even know like that's possible reading the first issue, but reading the first show, they got to it right away. They're like, "Oh, it's possible, bitch, time travel." Yeah, they get to it a lot faster in the show. So yeah, this was a bit of a complaint. So I had that complaint, but they didn't do it. So I was like, okay, shut up. But like certain stuff, they just don't show us. Like they pull them out of the car, and then she has that dream about Reagan, and when she opens her eyes, they're in like some spaceship. And it's like, how did y'all get into that? Why? How did they like? I don't know. It was just like, okay.
Well, because the guys came and pulled them out the car, so I got that. Like, the guys pulled them
and they
out.
just like, yeah, but I don't know. I would kind of want to see the reaction of these girls. Like, what the fuck are we in? Because then when they got out, remember they're like, did we fly? Like, because I would want to see like what that was like. But maybe we'll get it like another time. I don't know. In the comic book, I will say that this is when I asked you guys what they found in the unfinished house, and I was like, oh, they didn't find anything, but they ran into that guy, right?
Yeah.
And that's when they saw his face. In the comic book, it's that thing, and they don't know what it is.
The time machine thing?
Yeah. And I like, because like when they go in there and they're looking for Wally Becker or whatever, when they go through the window and like, oh, it stinks in here, and Aaron says, do you guys hear that? And they're like, what? And she says, it's like when you enter a house and you know that TV is on even though the sound is not on.
Yeah, the static.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And so it was that thing, obviously, giving that off. And so there's more discussion, like they have at Mac's house, which is the scene we're getting to. No. We were already there, sorry. But it's more discussions like, what is this, aliens, Russians, whatever, because they see that thing and it's like, and then one of them even is like, maybe it's like War of the Worlds. Like, it's the 50th anniversary of War of the Worlds. So yeah, they're in the forest, out of that capsule. One of the guys put some stuff on Aaron's stomach. That shit looked nasty later. Like that.
It's just lightning bugs.
Nah, son. That was... I like how that shit snapped her out of it, though. She was like, oh, this is real. This is real. This is real, and I don't like it. But yeah, the one guy gets shot. Well, this is after they say we travel. He's like, do you know what we mean by travel? And then that's when he's like, I hate these. Because he doesn't know if it's like... Because they're still like, what are you talking about? They don't know if they're being understood.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that. It was such a good, like, reason for them to not say anything.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're a long way from home.
And they want you to think it's like distance in...
Right.
Yeah, not distance in time.
And I was like, yeah, this is time travel.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I understood, by now that's what was happening.
One of the guys gives Tiff, after he gets shot, the second guy, this thing that will get her, that'll get them underground. And then Erin realizes that her wound is healed. And I like that she's like, when she calls her new girl, she goes, I'm sorry, new girl. She's like, I'm so sorry, I thought I killed you. And she's like, my name is Erin, it's not new girl. I laughed out loud when Mac was like, okay, I'm sorry, Erin, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the delivery on that, like, she really felt it.
Yeah, she was like, holy shit, okay, relax, but we're gonna die, and I'm really sorry, but...
That was great, because, like, the whole episode, she was trying to be like, my name's Erin, y'all can call me Erin, you don't have to call me new girl.
Yeah. So they knock out this one guy that approaches as one of the people in white. He has a gun. He asks if they're underground. And I was like, I feel like in the comic book that the that it's, to me, I feel like this was so ambiguous. Like, are they a threat? Like, I don't know. But KJ decided, fuck that. I'm not going to give him a chance to.
But that guy gave her that thing and said this for the underground.
Right, but what I'm saying is when the other girl, when Tiffany pulls it out and she's like, is this what you mean? He steps forward to look at it. KJ just knocks him out.
She does that field
so
hockey
we don't
stick.
know. What?
That field hockey stick. And she
Yeah, so I mean, we don't know if he would have looked at it and
It's
said,
like a shillelagh.
like maybe maybe we would have learned that those other guys were bad. And that, they didn't have a reason to be running from them. But KJ did not give him the opportunity. She's like, he was going to kill us.
Yeah, like that's like, I wasn't sure like if I should feel like they were a threat until they killed the other guy who was laying on the ground.
Yep.
And then I was like, I feel like they're a threat.
But we don't know like what those other guys are.
No,
like,
but if you just go up and just shoot somebody cold blood and just to kill them and then walk away.
I don't know. What if they're like Thanos?
Right.
You don't know what they've done.
True. I mean, like, you don't know what the other two guys were. But, like, I just felt like the other two guys seemed
nice.
Like they seemed more affable, I guess. And then like to number one, have that one guy come up pointing a gun at you and yelling at you, and then to look at the other people like shoot a guy who's on the ground, who's not a threat anymore. Like, I was like, these people feel like they're a threat.
I don't know, like, how it was supposed to, they left this situation, and it was daytime, which, okay, makes sense, because it was already early morning. They've been running around. But then when they show up at Erin's house, it's nighttime. And I was like, what are we doing? Were y'all running all day?
Yeah, because she was like, if we're where I think we are, we're near my house.
Right. And I was like, where do y'all think y'all are? Because what are we talking about? But then it's like, it took you all day to get there? That was weird to me.
Timey-wimey.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like purposeful, like, that indicates something, like they crossed something. I honestly don't remember. Or I think it couldn't be continuity. Like, that's a pretty big error. But yeah, then it ends with them.
Now this show is reminding me of The Walking Dead,
Right. But yeah, then it ends with them encountering adult Erin. I mean, the keys still work, so they didn't break in.
Yeah.
But this is just that weird thing where her future self does, like, this is the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah, she doesn't. As it stands now, it doesn't seem like she remembers this.
Right.
She didn't recognize herself or the others.
She didn't time travel her version.
Right.
Yeah. So that implies like time is not linear in this universe.
So,
I like how they revealed it by having her say, "Oh shit," or whatever she said.
Yeah.
Both of them saying it at the same time. And they're like, "Look at her and look at her."
And Tiffany's looking at the pictures on the fridge. She's like, "Girl." And it's gonna be interesting because she has a sister, so don't know what happened there.
Who has a sister? Erin?
Mm-hmm.
How come they haven't shown that sister?
She was there. I think they share. I know in the comic book they share. Right, because in the comic book, like I said, it opens with her having this bad dream about Kristen McAuliffe, and it's her sister's being threatened, and then is like killed in the dream. And when she wakes up, she's on the top bunk, and she like leans over and she goes, "Missy, are you dead?" And the sister doesn't. I'll take a screenshot. The sister doesn't say shit. She just like opens one eye, and it's like the stinkest stink eye I've ever seen. Like, bitch, I'm sleeping. What do you mean? Am I dead? And that's how she gets up to start her day. But yeah, she has this, and I think like you can see on those pictures on the fridge. So anyway, that is it. My dog is being really annoying, and it's super, 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 super hot, and I'm really, really, really sleepy. Like, super tired.
Just one line. I don't know if you mentioned it, but I thought it was funny when they're at Mac's house, and KJ's like talking about the bat mitzvah she's not gonna have to go to.
Yeah.
And then Mac is like, "What's a bat mitzvah?"
Yeah, that's how I feel like they're establishing that she doesn't know as much as she thinks she does, and all the shit she repeats is like the bullshit from her dad. You know?
Right. It was very clear. Like she's just not knowledgeable.
Yes. Anyway.
And the movie was not of the comic that I was talking about, the 80s movie.
Oh, that's right. We did watch that. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the comet makes everybody disappear.
That's right. I remember that. Now I remember how freaky
I don't
that
remember
was.
this shit.
Anyway. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. Like I said, check out the website for our schedule and leaving feedback for this and future shows. And we will be back next week to talk about Paper Girls episode 2.